The river took Tonde's mother first, then his father, both in the same terrible flood, on the same moonless night, in the same unforgiving current. He was 6 years old, small enough to be carried in the arms of a neighbor who wept the whole way home. That was the beginning of everything. By the time Tunde was 15, he had grown used to the particular silence of an empty hut, the kind of silence that does not rest but watches. He lived at the edge of Oja-Odo, a riverside village tucked so deeply into the southwestern forest of Nigeria that the mango trees had learned to whisper in Yoruba. The elders here spoke only in proverbs, the kind of sayings that sounded like comfort but always contained a warning. A child who eats alone will forget the taste of community. Or, the river gives, and the river demands, never confuse the two. Tunde had heard them all. He had heard them while sweeping the compound of Baba Lasisi for a handful of egusi. He had heard them while carrying firewood on his head for Momoroti, who would press 2 shriveled plantains into his palm and call it payment. He had heard them and nodded, and then gone home to lie on a mat that was thinner every season, staring at a roof that was slowly deciding to become a ceiling no more. On the evening that changed his life, Tunde had earned nothing. He sat at the edge of the river as the sun bled out across the water in shades of orange and bronze, his feet dangling over the bank, his stomach closed around itself like a fist. He did not cry. He had run out of tears somewhere around his 12th year. He was watching the water when the water washed back. It began as a disturbance, a ripple that moved against the current, which no ripple should do. Then a shimmer, silver and green and something in between that had no name in any human language. Then she rose. She was not what the stories had described. The village elders spoke of Aya Omi, mother of water, as something terrible, a spirit with eyes like lanterns and a voice that could dissolve a man's resolve the way salt dissolves in heat. What Tunde saw was a woman from the waist upward, draped in the color of deep water, with hair that moved as though it was still submerged, and eyes that were not lanterns but old the way hills are old in a way that made Tunde feel suddenly, acutely aware of how brief his own life had been. Any other boy in Oja-Odo would have run. Tunde stayed. Not out of bravery. Out of exhaustion. "You are not afraid," she said. Her voice was the sound of water over smooth stone, not loud, but it went everywhere. "I am afraid," Tunde replied honestly. "But my legs are tired." Something moved across her ancient face. It was not quite a smile, but it was close enough. She studied him for a long time, or perhaps no time at all, Tunde could not be sure, because the light around her behaved differently than it should. She asked him why he sat at the river's edge alone, and he told her the truth, that he had nothing to eat, nowhere comfortable to be, and that the river, at least, did not pity him. He said that last part without bitterness. It was simply the truth, and he had learned to love simple truths the way poor people love simple food, because they were reliable. When he finished speaking, she was quiet. Then she reached beneath the surface of the river, her arm dissolving into it as though water and spirit were the same substance, and drew out a fish. It was not large. It was, in fact, no bigger than Tunde's hand, its scales the color of old bronze, its eye a perfect circle of amber light. She placed it on the bank beside him without touching him, and as her fingers withdrew, he noticed they left no wetness on the grass. "This fish carries one blessing," she said. "Cook it and eat it, and whatever you need most in that moment will come to you in the morning. But hear me, Tunde." Her voice became the sound of deep water now, the kind beneath which things are very still. "One fish. One blessing. Use it rightly, and the world will be generous. Use it out of greed, and the world will remember. He wanted to ask her what she meant. But she was already descending, the river folding over her shoulders like a cloth, and then she was gone, and the water moved normally again, and the sun finished setting, and the evening came in with its crickets. Tunde sat for a long time holding the fish in both hands. He cooked it that night, alone in his hut, over a small fire. It tasted like nothing he could name, neither good nor bad, but clean, the way air tastes after rain. He ate every piece and lay down on his mat and fell, for the first time in years, into the kind of sleep that does not dream. In the morning, he found a fat envelope of money at his door. It was not a fortune. But it was enough to repair his roof, buy a proper sleeping mat, fill his stomach for several weeks, and even acquire a modest stall at the village market where he could sell the palm oil he had been trading in small, struggling quantities for the past 2 years. The change in Tunde's life was not dramatic at first. It crept in slowly, the way warmth does after cold. His stall began to do well, better than it should have, people said, better than any logic could explain, but not so much better that anyone called it magic. He ate every day. He laughed more. He stopped counting his ribs. But Oja-Odo was a village of watching eyes and talking mouths. It began with the questions. Where did his money come from? Did he have a rich relative in Lagos? Had he stolen something? Then the questions became speculation, and the speculation became rumor, and the rumor mutated the way rumors do in small places until the version that most people believed was that Tunde had discovered some secret source of wealth he was hiding from the community. Among those watching was Alhaji Musa, who owned 3 plots of land and still wanted 4. And Auntie Fola, who had 7 goats and was counting toward 8. And the young men who had grown up beside Tunde and were surprised to find that they resented his changing fortune more than they had ever pitied his poverty. They came to him one by one and then in groups. They did not ask directly, nobody in Oja-Odo asked directly for anything. They came with gifts, a bottle of palm wine, a small bag of kola nuts. They sat and talked around the subject the way you walk around a fire, and eventually arrived at the center. If you know something we don't know, Tunde, it is not the behavior of a community member to keep it for yourself. And, whatever stream you have found, a good man shows others where to drink. And Auntie Fola said, very sweetly, very gently, exactly the kind of gentle that carries weight inside it, you are nothing. We carried you. Have you forgotten? Tunde had not forgotten. That was the problem. The gratitude he felt toward the village, genuine, complicated, uncomfortable, became the door through which pressure entered. He began to think, perhaps he had used only part of the blessing. Perhaps the fish had more to give. Perhaps the mermaid would understand, would see that this was not greed, exactly, but obligation. He returned to the river on a Tuesday evening when the light was grey and the air smelled of coming rain. He sat where he had sat before. He waited. She came faster this time, and without the shimmer, she simply rose, and her face was different. Not angry. Older somehow, in the way that a face becomes older when it is disappointed. You have come back, she said. I have come to ask. I know what you have come to ask. He stopped. I told you, she said, very quietly, 1 fish. 1 blessing. Not because I am without power, Tunde. Because a blessing received with wisdom becomes a life. A blessing chased with greed becomes a lesson. I am not greedy, he said. I am being pressured. People say I owe them. You owe them kindness, she said. You owe no one a miracle. And then, Did the blessing not lift you? Did you not eat, sleep, trade, and grow? He could not deny it. Then you already have everything I gave you. You have not lost it. You are standing in it right now. She tilted her head, and that almost smile returned, sadder this time. What you want now is not your blessing. You want theirs. That is the part that is not yours to give. He did not fully understand her. He returned home troubled and said nothing to anyone. But the understanding came later, not all at once, but in pieces, the way understanding always comes to those who are patient enough to wait for it. He began to see that his store's success was not magic after all. It was what the blessing had enabled: a clear head, a rested body, a foundation. Everything that had come after that had come from him: his early mornings, his fair dealings, his willingness to extend small credit to other struggling people in the village when he could afford to. The blessing had not built his life. The blessing had simply handed him the first brick. And he saw, too, that the people pressuring him were not really asking for a blessing. They were asking to skip the bricks entirely. He went to Auntie Fola and thanked her, genuinely, for the plantings of his childhood. He bought her a proper gift, a good length of Ankara fabric, and told her clearly, without cruelty, that he had no secret sauce to share. He said the same, in different ways, to the others. Some of them were satisfied. Some were not. A few of them stopped speaking to him. He let them. He continued to tend his store. He continued to eat every day. And some mornings, especially when the river caught the early light in a particular way, he would look at the water and feel what he could only describe as a kind of fullness, not the fullness of food, which passes, but the fullness of someone who knows, in their body as well as their mind, that they are exactly where they are supposed to be. He never saw the mermaid again. But once, on a night of heavy rain when the river was loud and the wind moved through Oja-Odo like a living thing, he thought he heard, beneath the sound of everything, a voice like water over smooth stone. The river gives, it seemed to say, and the river demands, never confuse the two. He smiled in the dark. He had not confused them. Not in the end. And that, the elders would later say, though none of them knew the full story, only the shape of it, was worth more than any number of fish. Among those who tell this story in Oja-Odo, the version that survives longest is the shortest one. A boy received a gift, almost wasted it asking for more, and chose instead to become the kind of person who no longer needed another miracle. The river, they say, has not forgotten him. And on certain evenings, when the water moves against its own current, the people of the village know enough to stay quiet and listen.